This is the last time I will be talking about the MVP race on this channel, unless we do some video where we're recapping the award winners at the end. But there's one game left of the regular season. It's tomorrow on Sunday where every team plays again. But Shea versus Jokic for the MVP race is, at least since I've been watching, which hasn't been very long. I've only been watching NBA since the 2016-2017 season. This is the closest MVP race that I've ever, that I've ever been a part of. Obviously, I have no say in who wins or who, anything like that. But if I'm giving my opinion, if you watch the Hoops All In main channel where we do an episode every week, I've been saying the past few times this conversation has come up that they need to do a dual MVP award. It has never happened for the MVP before. I believe that the um, they've done it for Rookie of the Year. Um, I think Jason Kidd like shared a rookie of the year, or somebody shared rookie of the year with somebody like around the late 90s, or yes, Jason Kidd and Grant Hill were both tied for first. They both got the same amount of votes. And I don't know if that's what would need to happen for the MVP race. I would assume so, which I don't know if that's going to happen because I feel like a lot of people at this point are swayed in one way versus another. Last year, Shea was second place. He had 15 first place votes. Jokic had 79. And but this year, if you I'm gonna do what everyone probably has done, where I'm gonna compare them head to head versus each other, even though obviously versus just each other doesn't mean you're the MVP, but this regular season, their teams are 2-2 versus each other. The Nuggets 1-2 against Shea, and the Thunder 1-2 against Jokic. Shea's played 76 games this year. Jokic has played 69, so they both will qualify for MVP this year, no question about it. Shea is averaging just under 33 points a game. Jokic is averaging just under 30. Um, The rebounds, obviously, Jokic has that. He's averaging just under 13. Shea's averaging 5. Assists, obviously, Jokic has that. 10 versus 6.5 for Shea. Steals, it's pretty much the same 1.8, 1.7 going Jokic's way. Um, but I will say, I don't want to, because a lot of people, when they do this conversation, they're hating on the other person. Like, if you're Team Jokic to win MVP, you're doing everything you can to diminish what Shea does, whether you're saying he's a free throw merchant, whether you say his team is better than the Nuggets, whether you say whatever, and then same for the opposite. If you're Team Shea, you're diminishing what Jokic does because Jokic's team isn't as dominant as they've been, or Shea's averaging more points, whatever. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to give both sides, and Shea's steals are definitely more of a Shea going to reach for the steals, but that's because he has a much better defensive team around him, I will say. So he's able to go for steals. Jokic is kind of like he gets in the way. He tips it or deflects it when they try and drop it down low. Because as we know, there's a lot of players in the league that average a lot of steals that aren't great defenders in this league. So steals obviously don't, to me, they don't mean too much until you get to like defensive player of the year and you see the candidates. But and then blocks per game, Jokic only has 0.6 and Shea has 1. Again, I think Shea is one of the best defensive guards in the league. Again, he's not like a specialist like Drew Holiday or Derek White even or just guys like Amen Thompson, Dyson Daniels. He's not a specialist like where that's his strongest suit, obviously, but he's a good defender to where he can average a block a game and almost 2 steals. He's led the league in steals before this year. Obviously, that's Dyson Daniels this year, but Field goal percentage is obviously Jokic, 57.5. Shea's at 52 though, which is pretty good for a guard. 3-point percentage, 41 for Jokic, 37 for Shea. Now, granted, Shea takes a few more, but again, Jokic has just been more consistent on that. Shea is just under 90% from the free throw line. Jokic is just barely 80%. And then, I mean, effective field goal, it's Jokic. Box plus minus average is Jokic, but I will say Shea was very close to, if he played the rest of the games this year, he was very close to being one of three players to have 1,000 plus box plus minus. I don't remember who the other two were. I believe it was, I don't know, it was Super Elite Company. It was like Jordan and maybe LeBron, or like Jordan and Larry Bird. It was some, it was like a top 10 player as well. Um, and then the second place person is like 400 box plus minus behind him. I think Jokic was third in the league for box plus minus as of when I saw it. They were both all stars this year. They've both had like historic seasons because, again, Jokic, a 30-point triple double, which, if I'm correct, I don't believe Jokic has ever averaged a triple double technically in his career. He has not. So this will be the first year that he will average a triple double for his career while also notching his career high in points. But Shea, I mean, he's scored the most. He's averaging the most points on a 65 plus win team ever. He's the first 65 plus win team since Houston in 2017, 2018, with where James Harden was going nuclear. I think that was the year James Harden won MVP. Um, I mean, they're 14 and a half games above the Houston Rockets, who are the second seed. And I mean, they might run away with the West. I mean, again, it's so hard to say for the West because the West has so many decent teams in it that, like, if they ended up losing in the second round in a 7-game, like, it went to game 7 because they had to play the Denver Nuggets or the Lakers, it wouldn't be like the most, like, surprising thing just because of the West has so many good teams. But again, I would say if we try and get this to be a dual MVP, the only reason I put back, like, I'm like, oh, should we do the dual MVP? Because Jokic fans will say, oh, Shea just got the dual MVP because they felt bad for him. And then vice versa. Shea fans will say, oh, they gave it to Jokic because they didn't want to do, too much voters fatigue, or they didn't, they felt bad that they were going to maybe rob out on a two historic seasons. So, but my vote, when you pick one, it's Shea. Jokic, and this is not because of voters fatigue for me. This is not because Jokic has already won 3, and if he wins the 4th this year, he'll be one of a few players that has over 4 MVPs. He basically will have done what LeBron did in the early 2010s, where LeBron won 2. He got broken up by a gap year of somebody that some people say don't deserve it, and Derrick Rose. In this case, it was Embiid. Some people thought that they just gave Embiid the award because, oh, you've been runner up to Jokic for a couple years in a row. You've had a pretty good season this year, so we'll give it to you. And then Jokic will win 2 in a row again if he wins this year. So he was super close to almost 5-peating an MVP if he would win this year. But this to me is because, I mean, sure, Jokic has the overall triple double stats, but I hate that the MVP award has come to pretty much since the Westbrook year, who is closest to averaging a triple double, because I don't think that that's what an MVP is. Jokic is by far the best player in the league, and I did a video where I was ranking the top 10 players in the league, and I said this multiple times, but because you're the best player in the league, you don't necessarily win MVP. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because then LeBron would have like 15 MVP awards. And other guys would lose out on MVPs like Derrick Rose, like like there's just so many MVPs that would lose out on because they weren't the best player in the league and because there was LeBron. Same with Jordan. Jordan would have probably 12 MVPs. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson probably have like six each. Wilt Chamberlain should have 15 then, if with everything that he is said to be done in his time. So again, it's not best player or in the league is always the MVP. That's just not how it works. Now, maybe that is because the people that do vote have voters fatigue and they don't want to see the same thing every year. I think it's kind of BS, but that's the way that the NBA has been forever, and I don't see that changing no matter who the person is, whether it's LeBron, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Nikola Jokic or Giannis, or because if I'm being honest, I think Giannis could have more than his two MVPs too, because Giannis is having pretty much his best season. He's averaging 30 points again on like the best field goal percentage that he's had. So it's another historic season, but again, the Bucks haven't been as great this year. They got off to a really slow start. Milwaukee's the fifth seed, so he's kind of out of the conversation. I would say the fourth guy in this race is probably Tatum, but again, Tatum doesn't get the double digit assists or double digit rebounds every single night like some of these guys do, and he's also not averaging like 35. So he's again a person I don't think will win it. Like I said with Anthony Edwards in our video, in our most recent video I put out. And probably the fifth guy is probably like a Donovan Mitchell just because of team success, mainly because his numbers aren't his career best. LeBron would probably be my fifth or sixth in this MVP voting just because what he's done for the Lakers. The Lakers look like they're going to finish at the third seed in the West unless something crazy happens where the Denver Nuggets or LA Clippers win and the Lakers lose in the last game. I don't know who has that tiebreaker. So that's all up in the air. But again, going back to Shea, I mean, like I said, with that team in 17-18, there was the first 65 win team since James Harden's Rockets. And I'm pretty sure, let's see, James Harden did win MVP. I mean that's a pretty obvious thing to me. There's still again one more game left in the season, so if they win, they could have 68 wins in the regular season, which I mean even now they are one of the most dominant teams in NBA regular season teams in NBA history. I believe they have one of the best defensive ratings in NBA history as well, which you look at their personnel, it's not too surprising with Shea, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, a Hartenstein and Chet, even their bench pieces, Case and Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, you know, Big J Will. They got a lot of defensive pieces, and my personal favorite defensive piece over there is J Dub, just because what he does at his size, and what he had to do for a while when that team had no centers. But and again with the Mike Malone firing for the Denver Nuggets, it's just another thing. Like the Nuggets will probably finish. They could finish pretty much anywhere between 4 and 5 this year. Again, they're tied with the Clippers going into the last games tomorrow. But um, I mean, 49. If they do lose their last game, they'll be at 49. If they win, they'll be at 50. Neither 49 or 50 competes to 67 or 68 wins. And again, while I was saying, the best player in the league and just best in stats aren't the only thing that equate to it, I do I do not agree with the people that, back in the day would put like the best player on the best team is the MVP every year, because then this year it would obviously be Shea. Last year it would have been Tatum. The year before would have been uh I don't know who the year before would have been, but like if we go back even to like 2019, 2020 in the bubble, 2020, 21, like Donovan Mitchell's Utah Jazz was the best team out, out west. And that I just that's not how it works. I think it's a blend. I think stats are the first thing you look at, but if the stats are two historic seasons, and again, they're historic in a different way because obviously Shea is not a 7-foot center that's averaging double digit assists, but you know, but Shea is a 6'6" guard who's averaging 33 points a game on one of the most dominant regular season teams in recent history and in total NBA history. So you look at the stats, they're pretty much they don't necessarily cancel each other out because I think if you took like the silhouette, I think you just if you just put the silhouette of two players there and you had their stats below them, I think Mike Malone said this a few months ago. You would probably pick Jokic's stats just based off nothing, no details. You don't know who else is on your team because an almost 30-point triple double is it's crazy. But you look at the other side, 33, 5, and 6 is also insane. So I'll give Jokic the number one on stats, and then Shea is a close number two. But then you look at team, which I think is the second thing you look at in MVP voting, and you see, okay, the Denver Nuggets, sitting around 50 wins like they've been the past few years since the championship. They started off relatively slow, which I don't think people understand. And all these awards are full season awards for the whole 82 game season. So yes, technically I'm making this video 81 games into the season, but I don't think my answer is going to change unless Jokic puts up a 100-point, 30-point, triple double or whatever. But you look at the team, 50 wins. You look at the other side, you say Shea, who also has elite stats, who's going to get the scoring title this year and is probably the second or third best player in general in the league this year. And you see 67 wins. I mean, or 68, whatever they get to. I want to look up teams that have more wins. More wins in a season than them. Obviously, I know the Warriors from 2016 and the 95 Bulls have 73 and 72 wins. But I want to see other teams. So we've got the first is a 73 win Warriors, 72 win Bulls, and 95-96. My fault. And then the third seed in 1967, not 1996, 1997, the year right after the 72 win Bulls. The Bulls had 69 wins. The Lakers had 69 in 71-72 season. The Celtics had 68 in 72-73. The Sixers had 68 way back in 1967. And then you have the Thunder of this year, who is in seventh place with one game to go. And they trumped over teams like the Golden State Warriors, the first year that they had Kevin Durant, the year that the Spurs won 67 games in 2015, 2016, another Warriors team, the '07 Mavericks, the 2000 Lakers, the '86 Celtics, the 2013 Heat. Like they have trumped some historic, historic teams. And again, if they do win this last game, they will be tied for fifth because they will have be tied for the fifth most wins in an NBA season ever, and that's not something you look over. That like I if the Thunder had maybe 60 wins or 58 wins and the Nuggets still had 50-50 or whatever they're going to be at, I think that's when Jokic would probably get the upper hand, but 67 or 68 wins in a season where you have trumped the competition. Again, the Houston Rockets are 15 games almost behind them. It's almost like the right like the Celtics last year. They had 4 wins. They didn't get obviously as high as the Thunder, but they were like 14 games above everyone in the East. And I'm gonna do the thing that a lot that I don't necessarily like doing, but the West is overall better than the East. Whether I think, like I said on the Hoops All In last week's episode, I did say if everyone was healthy, I think there are more true title contenders in the East than out West because I think there's too many questions out West. But overall, you look at the teams 1 through 10 in the play-in versus in the West, and the teams 1 through 10 in the East. The West is objectively better. I mean, even if you go to the next team out, the Phoenix Suns were 11. They even though they didn't have the greatest season, but like if we're being honest, like Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, all in the play-in again. They're all gonna do absolutely nothing in the playoffs if they do get out of the play-in. So, but and then it doesn't help the fact with the West being better thing that guys like Wemby got drafted to, the West. This year, Cooper Flag very well might go to a team like New Orleans or Utah, um, or even San Antonio, Portland. I mean, again, there are just as many opportunities where he could go to a Washington or Charlotte out east, but and then, I mean, that again, that doesn't overtake everything, but and then we had some teams in the this off season that came from out west to out east, like Paul George, Carl Anthony Towns, um, and I think that, but again, going back to MVP, you got everyone that's voting for Jokic. Just tell people why Jokic is your MVP. Don't tell me why Shea isn't your MVP. Tell me why Jokic is the MVP. And if your team's Shea, tell me why Shea is your MVP. Don't say why Jokic isn't the MVP. Because again, even though I'm Team Shea, all those people that are on, voting for Shea and trying to diminish what Jokic is doing, Jokic could still win this year. Just because this is my vote and this is my, ideology of why I think Shea will win this year doesn't mean it's going to happen. Again, I have no say in what um happens. I'm not a voter. I have no connections to anybody in the NBA or ESPN or anybody that votes for these awards. It's just how I think that people will go about it. And I think that some of those people in the media that do get votes, I think are going to tie in some voters' fatigue because, again, some of those guys that are voting in the media are former players. And I've heard before that even before Jokic won the MVP last year, that some people weren't okay with him winning three because it puts you in elite company in like NBA history. And I think Jokic is a player that's in elite an elite company in NBA history, and he will be by the time he retires. I've said before, um, that it's gonna be so weird to me trying to rank Jokic like amongst like just centers in general, other people in his position from back in the day because to me, a lot of the greatest centers of all time are not players that have played pretty much recently at all, like Shaq or Kareem or, Bill Russell, Wilt, Hakeem, anyone like that. It's so hard to put Jokic up against those guys because those guys are all our traditional centers that dominated the paint, but Jokic is dominating like a point center. It's going to be so hard to rank him where you will have him. I think that he probably already as of right now is a top 15, 20 player in NBA history, which some people might not like, some people might not agree, but I think him and Giannis are at least both top 25 players in NBA history already, and they still probably have at least 5 years of their career each since they're both like 29, 30 years old. So again, Shea is my official MVP for this year. Um, Again, it's nothing bad about Jokic because two historical seasons. Shea, I think just what he has done to the team is better than what Jokic is doing for his team. And again, that maybe that comes out wrong, but I also don't like the argument of people that say you took Jokic off the Nuggets, they're missing the play in, but you take Shea off the Thunder, they're still a top 2 seed. No, they're not. You take Shea off of OKC, they're probably a play-in team. You got to think that, like, definitely the Nuggets will be worse without Jokic. I 100% agree. That team's not as deep. They're, I believe, a second apron team, and they haven't done right with some of their players in the past, like losing KCP, Bruce Brown, and things like that. They're also older, which goes to say that a lot of people don't believe in the Thunder because the Nuggets or not the Nuggets, sorry, the Thunder are so young. Shea's one of the older players on that team, being 26 years old, and you take that 33 points per game off it, all that attention, and you just say, poof, Shea's off of the Thunder, and you got to put in, probably Case and Wallace. Obviously, Case and Wallace is not doing what he's doing, but that puts more on guys like J-Dub, who I don't think we have seen his full true potential in his offensive game come around. Chet, just I don't think he is there to take on a 25 point per game season yet, even though he's elite defensively and one of my favorite centers in the league. And I think he will potentially win a defensive player of the year at some point. Those guys just can't do what those guys can't do what Shea does, and they will not be able to make up for it. And while I do think that the Thunder will definitely be better without Shea versus the Nuggets without Jokic, it's not just it's not easy like people think, and I don't think the Thunder would be anything higher than a 7 seed, which would put them in the play-in. So, that's not how you grade what MVP is. You're looking at what they're doing for their team, who's been the most impactful, and again, if we're being honest, this Thunder team is pretty much the same as it was last year, and the like their draft pick that they got, Nikola Topic, hasn't played. So they really aren't that different. The Thunder last year won 57 games, which is even more than I remember them winning, but they've jumped over 10 wins already, and they haven't got that change that much. Shea's just got better as a player. And again, the Nuggets last year were actually at 57 as well. That's right. Them and the Timberwolves and the Thunder were tied for a long time going into that last game. The Thunder had the tiebreaker over the Nuggets, and then the Timberwolves were one game right behind them. And then the Nuggets have dropped 7 or 8 games. Now, granted, again, they did lose KCP, but I didn't. KCP is not changing that entire team's franchise around. KCP is like a 10 to 12 point per game scorer, and like he was a great defender, catch and shoot guy. But let's not act like KCP is the whole the whole system in Denver. Hell, he's doing not good at all in Orlando this year, which again doesn't really mean anything for what he did for Denver, but like even if we look at his stats in Denver, I mean 23, 24, 10 points per game. He was a great 3-point shooter, 40%. The year before when they did win, he was a 42% shooter, still 10 points per game. Again, he was a good defender too. He like 1.5 steals for a long time, but we can't be acting like KCP is the whole reason that they won. They still have their big four between Jokic, Gordon, Porter, and Murray. Now, Gordon has gone through injuries this year. Murray hasn't looked great this year to me, if I'm being honest. So, again, Shea is my MVP. There's not much to it. If you want to pick Jokic, then pick him. Tell me why in the comments, and I'll listen. I'm not going to. You can still persuade me the other way. This is just how I think and how people should go about this, instead of just putting all the negativity on one side when you're, the other side, because you're not appreciating, if you're a Jokic fan, you're not appreciating what Shea's doing if you're trashing Shea. Same the other way around. And there's just there's just no point in doing it because there are some people who you're not going to change their minds no matter how much you argue, no matter how much you trash their favorite player or anything. There's just people that won't listen no matter what. So, but that's all I have to say. This is the last time I'm talking about the MVP race on this channel. We will be doing it will either come out tomorrow or Monday, but it, hoops all in. We are doing it'll probably be our best episode yet. We will pick our final award winners for every award. Again, you now know who my MVP is, but we'll do all of our awards, all of our all NBA and defensive teams, and we're going to do a playoff prediction preview as well. So there's going to be a lot we're going through on the on in that episode. Again, it'll come out tomorrow night or Monday morning. So make sure you go watch. And again, let me know below, who do you have, Shea or Jokic? And again, you tell me why. I'll listen. I'll put my feedback into it. And that's all. Again, we'll still see. I think it's very possible that either of these guys can win MVP, but I think it's more likely at this point, with everything that's happened to Denver, that and how good the Nuggets are doing, that Shea has got it for this year.